All right, so we're back and ready for another deep dive. And wow, you guys sent in some seriously thought-provoking stuff this time.
Yeah, this one is a real head scratcher.
It really is. We're talking about a Reddit thread that's basically debating whether Manchester United are they heading for a Liverpool-style decline? You know, like what happened in the 90s after they won their last league title back in 1990.
I mean, it's a comparison that's hard to ignore,
It
right?
is. It is.
Yeah.
And especially when you think about, Manchester United, the resources they have, the global fan base, the brand recognition, it almost seems impossible to imagine them fading away like that.
Right. You almost think like, can a club that big really fall from grace?
Exactly. So the original post on this Reddit thread, it lays out the case pretty clearly. Liverpool, dominant for years, then boom, decades of struggle.
Mm.
Is that what's in store for Manchester United? What do you think?
Well, when you look at Liverpool's decline, it wasn't just one thing, right? It was kind of like uh, a whole bunch of issues all coming together at once, internal problems, financial limitations, and I think most importantly, they struggled to adapt to how football was changing. Like, they didn't really modernize their youth academy, so they fell behind in developing young players while other clubs were catching up.
Oh, that's interesting. So they sort of got stuck in their old ways.
Yeah, kind of. And, that's definitely something for Manchester United to think about, right? They need to be sure they're keeping up with the times.
Yeah, absolutely. But even with that in mind, there's still this feeling that, well, Manchester United, they're just too big to fail, aren't they? I mean, they're a global brand. They're making tons of money. A lot of comments are saying they can just buy their way back to the top if they need to.
Yeah, that's the simple answer, right? Just throw money at the problem. But it's not always that easy.
I guess not.
I mean, look at their merchandising revenue. It's insane. Doesn't seem to matter how the team is actually doing on the pitch.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So are you saying that the brand of Manchester United, it can actually kind of survive even if the team isn't doing well?
It's almost like there are two separate entities, you know what I mean? United FC, the actual football club, and then United Ltd, the global brand. One could be struggling while the other is raking it in.
So the brand can coast on past glory in marketing.
Well, to a certain extent, yeah. But for how long?
Hmm.
Especially when you think about the younger fans coming up who might not have that same emotional attachment to the club's history.
Right,
How
right. They're not looking back at the glory days. They're looking at who's winning now.
Exactly. And they've got options, right? You've got Man City, Chelsea, clubs that are built to win trophies now. So the question becomes, are kids choosing Manchester United because of the football they're playing today or because of their parents or the brand or the history?
That's a great point. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, you supported a team because they were exciting, because they played great football.
Right. Exactly. And I think that's something that a lot of the comments in this thread are pointing to. Are Manchester United clinging to past glory, relying on big name signings instead of building a team that plays attractive, consistent football, like what Arsenal did under Wenger for all those years? There's a risk that Manchester United could become a club that's known more for spending a lot of money and doing PR stunts than for actually having a strong football identity.
That's a scary thought. Almost like they're losing their soul in the pursuit of quick fixes.
Yeah, and that leads us to another big question that's come up a lot in these comments, the Marino factor. A lot of people praise his tactical brilliance, his ability to get results, but is his win now approach, is that really the right fit for a club that's trying to rebuild for the long term?
Right, right. I mean, he's a proven winner, but it's almost like his style is at odds with the idea of a long-term vision, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's interesting because even Van Gaal, who tried to implement a more methodical long-term approach, he ultimately failed to connect with the players and the fans. So it seems like Manchester United are in a bit of a bind no matter which direction they go.
It's a tough spot, for sure. So it sounds like even with all their resources, all their money, all that brand recognition, Manchester United, they don't have an easy path back to the top. It's about more than just spending money. They really need to figure out what they stand for on the pitch.
Exactly. And there's one detail from the comments that really stood out to me, and it kind of emphasizes that point even further. Missing out on the Champions League, for several seasons in a row, that could have massive financial implications for them. They could lose millions from sponsorships, like Adidas, for example.
Wow, I hadn't even considered that. So even their financial power, it has its limits.
It does, yeah. If they can't translate that financial might into consistent success on the field, it's going to catch up to them eventually. The stakes are very real. It's a tough lesson. Money can't buy everything in football. You need a winning culture, a distinct playing style, a connection with the fans that goes beyond just, slapping a logo on a t-shirt.
And so many of the comments, that's exactly what they're saying is missing. That
Yeah.
connection, that identity.
Yeah, and it's interesting because one comment, it really stuck with me. It said, like, that feeling of invincibility, that Fergie time magic, poof, gone. When Ferguson retired, it's like they've been searching for a new identity ever since.
Like they lost their soul and think they can just go out and buy a new one.
Huh. That's a great way to put it. I mean, can you really buy a soul in football? Or does it have to be something that you build over time through a shared vision, a commitment to something bigger than just winning?
So where does that leave Manchester United then? I mean, the comments, they're all over the place, some optimistic, some pretty pessimistic. What do you think? What's your take on their future?
It's tough to say, really. It's a complicated situation. I mean, on the one hand, you've got, they've got the resources, they've got the global recognition, they can attract top players, they can weather, the occasional setback. But on the other hand, they have to, they've got to rediscover their footballing identity, create a winning culture, and really connect with the fans on a deeper level.
So it sounds like their biggest opponent, it's not even like the other teams on the pitch, it's themselves.
It is. It's like they're battling their own legacy, trying to figure out who they are in this new era of football.
That's what makes this whole deep dive so fascinating. It's not just about trophies and league tables. It's about like the existential crisis of a football club.
Exactly. And that kind of leads to the next point,
Yeah.
Can their legacy be just about money?
There's got to be more to it than just commercial success.
Right. Of course, it's about the football, right? The passion, the connection with the fans, that sense of belonging, of shared purpose. That's what makes a club truly great.
You know what? You just reminded me of something. There was a comment that mentioned Real Madrid back in the early 2000s, the Galacticos era. They had all the stars, all the money, but they lacked that cohesive identity.
Yeah.
And ultimately, they didn't achieve what they could have. Is that a warning sign for Manchester United?
It should be. It shows that just buying a bunch of superstars doesn't guarantee success. You need that foundation, that shared vision.
Is that old saying, you can buy a clock, but you can't buy time? And in football, you can spend all the money in the world on players, but you can't buy the chemistry, the vision, the heart that makes a team truly great.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And at the end of the day, that's what it all comes down to for Manchester United. Will they become, another cautionary tale, a club lost in its own wealth?
Yeah.
Or will they rediscover their soul and reclaim their place at the top?
It's going to be a nail biter, that's for sure. I have no idea which way it's going to go.
And that's the beauty of football, right? It's unpredictable. Giants can fall, underdogs can rise.
That reminds me, some of the comments mentioned Aston Villa. They were a force in the 80s, even early 90s. But now, like, whole generation of fans, they just think of them as a small club. Perceptions change so quickly in football.
Yeah, it's a reminder that no club is too big to fall. It can happen to anyone.
And then it makes you wonder, like, is there a point of no return? Can a club that's fallen from grace ever really recover?
That's the question, isn't it? And I think it's a question that Manchester United, they're probably grappling with right now. They're at a crossroads, and the choices they make in the next few years, they're going to determine their destiny.
This whole discussion has really got me thinking about how cyclical football is. Teams rise and fall, dynasties crumble, new powers emerge. It never stays the same.
Exactly. And that's what makes it so captivating. There's always a new story being written, a new chapter unfolding.
In Manchester United's story, it's far from over. This could be the most important one yet.
It's a defining moment, absolutely. Will they rise to the occasion and get back to the top of English football, or will they, crumble under the weight of their legacy?
Only time will tell. But one thing's for sure, it's going to be a wild ride.
Absolutely. And it all comes back to those big questions we've been talking about, right? Commercial success versus footballing identity, short-term gains versus long-term vision, the power of legacy.
And at the heart of it all, what really makes a football club great? Is it trophies? Is it money? Is it being a global brand? Or is it something more, something you can't buy?
It really is.
Yeah.
That's the question we leave you with. What do you think makes a football club truly great? And where does Manchester United, where do they fit into that picture? What's their story going to be? It'll be interesting to see how it all plays out.
It will. It's going to be a wild ride.
Yeah,
there was this one comment. It mentioned the Dallas Cowboys. Yeah, big American football team. Haven't won a championship in ages, but everyone still calls them America's team. Makes you think, does that same logic apply to football clubs? Can you still be considered a giant, even if you're not winning trophies?
It's a great analogy. It really speaks to, the power of branding. Crafting a narrative that goes beyond just the results on the field. But I think, as we've been saying, even the strongest brands, they need to adapt. They need to evolve.
Right. And speaking of evolution, there were quite a few comments suggesting that maybe Manchester United's problems they stem from their massive commercial success. They've shifted focus from building a winning team to just maximizing profits.
It's a tough balance, right? For any club that reaches that level of global superstardom, how do you balance the business side with the sporting side? Can you really have one without sacrificing the other?
It's a question a lot of clubs are facing, I think. And it's almost like Manchester United, they've become, well, almost a victim of their own success. The
Yeah.
more money they make, the higher the expectations become. And it just gets harder and harder to stay true to those core values, those roots.
Yeah, and it creates this intense pressure, right? Every decision is scrutinized, every result is magnified. No wonder they've had so much trouble finding stability since the Ferguson era ended.
It's like they're trying to apply, old solutions to new problems.
Yeah.
It's not working.
And that's where innovation comes in, right? They need a new way forward, a model that allows them to compete, to be successful, but also to stay true to who they are.
There was one comment that really stood out to me. It said that what they really need is a manager who can build for the long term. Someone who can like instill a clear philosophy, create a team that's more than just the sum of its parts.
Yeah, like Klopp at Liverpool, he came in and he created this culture of belief, of unity, even when things are tough at the beginning. And the fans, they bought in completely.
And you see the results now. That kind of connection, that shared purpose, that's what Manchester United needs.
Absolutely. And it's something you can't just buy that. You have to earn it.
Well said. So there you have it, folks. We've explored the arguments, we've analyzed the comparisons, we've unpacked all those anxieties surrounding Manchester United's future.
We've presented you with both sides of the coin, the optimism and the pessimism. Now it's up to you to decide. Is Manchester United truly too big to fail? Or are they on the brink of a long and difficult decline?
Keep your eyes peeled over the next few seasons. The answers will start to reveal themselves both on the pitch and off it. And remember, in football, just like in life, the only constant is change. So who knows what the future holds? Until next time, happy watching.